The great orbital station Aurelia shone like a silver star against the dark of space. Built by many species together after a long era of conflict, it was known as a place where enemies came to talk instead of fight. Ships from hundreds of worlds hovered around it, their lights blinking slowly like distant constellations. Inside the station, music echoed through a massive hall made of glass and living crystal. Tonight was the Festival of Unity, a rare event where different civilizations celebrated peace through art, food, and dance. Strange scents filled the air, and languages from across the galaxy mixed together like waves in a calm sea. Among the crowd walked a human named Daniel Hale. He was not the strongest person in the room, nor the most important. He wore a simple formal uniform marked with the insignia of Earth's diplomatic corps. His role was cultural liaison, someone trained to observe, learn, and build bridges between species that did not always understand one another. Daniel had served as a soldier once, long before the peace accords. War had taught him patience. Peace had taught him curiosity. He moved through the hall calmly, watching dancers from different worlds. Some floated above the floor, supported by anti-gravity fields. Others used rhythmic clicking sounds instead of music. A species made of soft light spun slowly near the ceiling, leaving trails of glowing colors behind them. Humans were still new to galactic society. Many species found them strange, physically fragile compared to others, yet emotionally resilient in ways that were hard to measure. Daniel noticed how groups formed naturally. Species gathered with their own kind, speaking quietly. Some glanced at humans with interest, others with caution. That was normal. Trust took time. A wave of music shifted, slower now, deeper. The lights dimmed slightly, turning the hall into a field of shadows and silver reflections. That was when Daniel saw her. She stood alone near the edge of the chamber, close to a tall window that revealed the vast emptiness of space beyond. Unlike the others, she did not speak or move much. Her posture was perfectly straight, controlled, almost regal. Her clothing looked like armor, but delicate, dark layers woven with silver patterns that caught the light only when she turned. Her skin held a faint pale glow, and her eyes shimmered with deep crimson color. Several nearby aliens avoided looking directly at her. Daniel slowed his steps. He noticed the subtle signs, the empty space around her, the careful distance maintained by security guards, the way whispers moved through the crowd whenever someone glanced in her direction. He wondered if she was a high-ranking noble. Or something more dangerous, but what struck him most was not her power, it was her isolation. The music changed again, transitioning into a slow dance rhythm. Pairs began moving across the floor. Laughter rose gently around the hall. She remained still. Daniel hesitated for only a moment. His training told him to observe carefully. His instincts told him she might not want company, but another thought rose stronger. No one should stand alone at a celebration meant for unity. He approached slowly, making sure his steps were visible and non-threatening. Her gaze shifted toward him before he spoke, as if she had sensed him long before he arrived. Up close, her presence felt intense, like standing near a storm contained behind glass. Daniel offered a respectful nod. "Would you like to dance?" he asked simply. The words seemed to freeze the air. Several nearby conversations stopped instantly. A tall, insectoid ambassador turned sharply. Two armored guards stiffened. The woman studied him without blinking. Her eyes glowed slightly brighter. "You do not know who I am," she said softly. Her voice carried a low musical tone that resonated strangely, almost like two voices layered together. Daniel smiled gently. "I know you look like someone who hasn't been asked to dance tonight." A faint ripple of surprise crossed her expression. Around them, whispers grew louder. "The human doesn't know. He must be new. Someone stop him." The woman tilted her head, observing him as if he were an unusual puzzle. "Most beings avoid me," she said. "Maybe they're missing out," he replied calmly. Silence stretched between them. Then slowly she extended her hand. Gasps echoed from several directions. Daniel accepted her hand without hesitation. Her skin felt cool but not cold. There was strength beneath her elegant appearance, controlled, restrained power. They stepped onto the dance floor. The music flowed around them like water. At first, Daniel followed her lead, adjusting to movements that were unfamiliar yet graceful. She moved with precision, every step measured. Gradually, he matched her rhythm. The hall watched, some with fascination, some with fear. "You are not afraid," she observed. "I've met many different people," he said. Fear usually comes from not understanding. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You believe you understand me? No, he admitted, but I'm willing to learn. For a moment, something shifted in her expression, a small crack in an otherwise perfect mask. They continued dancing. Daniel felt a strange sensation, like a faint pressure in the air around them, not painful but heavy, as if gravity had subtly increased. He ignored it, focusing instead on keeping the rhythm steady. She watched his face closely, searching for signs of panic. None appeared. You are either very brave, she said quietly, or very foolish. Probably both, he answered with a soft laugh. The music slowed toward its end. As the final notes faded, she leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. You should know, she said, that I am called the Crimson Sovereign. The title meant nothing to Daniel, but the reaction from the crowd told him everything. Shock spread through the hall. A diplomat dropped a glass. Security teams shifted position. Daniel blinked once, then nodded politely. It's an honor to meet you, he said. Her expression flickered again, confusion this time. You truly do not know. I'm still learning names, he admitted. A faint sound escaped her, not quite laughter, but close. The song ended. They separated slowly. Before he could step back, she held his gaze. Why did you invite me? She asked. He thought for a moment before answering. You looked lonely. Something deep and ancient moved behind her eyes. She released his hand. Without another word, she turned and walked away, her guards following silently behind. The crowd immediately surrounded Daniel with questions. Do you know what you just did? That was the vampire queen. She feeds on life essence. You should have stayed away. Daniel listened calmly, processing the information. Vampire queen. He glanced toward the exit where she had disappeared. Instead of fear, he felt curiosity. Later that night, high above the station, inside a chamber lit by dim crimson light, the queen stood alone before a panoramic window. Her advisors spoke urgently behind her, voices tense with concern. The human must be monitored. He may be a threat. He showed no fear. She raised a hand, silencing them. Her thoughts remained focused on the dance, on the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, on the strange warmth she had felt instead of the usual hunger. It has been centuries, she said quietly, since anyone approached me without fear. Her advisors exchanged worried glances. Outside the window, stars drifted slowly past. For the first time in a very long time, the vampire queen felt something unfamiliar. Curiosity. And she decided she would meet the human again. Daniel did not sleep much after the festival. He lay on the narrow bed inside the Earth delegation quarters, staring at the ceiling lights that slowly changed color to match the station's artificial day cycle. His mind kept replaying the moment the alien woman had accepted his hand, the way the room had gone quiet, the way everyone had looked at him like he had stepped into a storm without realizing it. Vampire Queen. The words still felt strange. In human stories, vampires were creatures of old myths and shadowed castles. Out here, among real stars and real treaties, the title carried weight like a weapon. The next morning, the station corridors were calmer, but the tension remained in the air. Security drones hovered higher than usual. Patrol teams moved in pairs. Diplomats walked faster, speaking in low voices. Daniel headed to the cultural office to review festival reports, but he barely made it to the first corridor junction before a senior diplomat intercepted him. Ambassador Lin Zhao stood with her arms folded, her expression sharp but controlled. She was older, experienced, and had survived enough negotiations to recognize danger before it arrived. You have a talent for finding trouble, she said quietly. Daniel offered a polite nod. Good morning, Ambassador, she leaned closer. Do you understand who you danced with? I know the title now, Daniel answered. I didn't know last night. Lin's eyes narrowed. Ignorance doesn't protect you from consequences. I didn't insult her, Daniel said. I asked her to dance. That might be the problem, Lin replied. To some species, inviting a sovereign to dance can be seen as claiming a personal bond, even if you didn't mean it. Daniel paused. I did not think about that. No one thought a human would do it, Lin said. Which is why the entire station is talking about you. Daniel gave a small, tired smile. I suppose that's one way to build cultural bridges. Lin did not smile back. I'm assigning a security escort. I can handle myself, Daniel said. You handled yourself last night by accident, Lin replied. Do not rely on luck again. Before Daniel could respond, a small hovering drone drifted toward them. It carried a black gold insignia Daniel did not recognize. The drone stopped at exactly eye level, then projected a short message in clear interstellar standard. The Crimson Sovereign requests the presence of Daniel Hale. Private audience. Immediate. Lynn's face tightened. Daniel felt his heartbeat quicken, but he kept his posture calm. She wants to meet, he said. Lynn stepped forward. Tell her he is unavailable until proper diplomatic protocols are... The drone shifted slightly, as if listening, then displayed a second line. The request is not optional. Lynn's jaw clenched. Around them, a few aliens paused, watching. Whispers spread like sparks. Daniel exhaled slowly. I'll go. Lynn stared at him. Daniel, you don't know what this could mean. I know what it might mean if I refuse, he said. It could be seen as disrespect or fear. Lynn looked frustrated, but she was a diplomat. She understood the game of appearances. Fine, she said, but you won't go alone. I'll send 2 guards to the outer door, and you will keep your comm unit active at all times. Daniel nodded once. Agreed. He followed the drone through the station. The path led toward a restricted wing, one usually reserved for high-level leaders. The corridor lights dimmed gradually. The air grew cooler, carrying a faint metallic scent. Daniel noticed how the station's usual noise faded as they moved deeper. Even the hum of ventilation seemed quieter. Finally, the drone stopped before a tall door made of dark alloy and polished stone. 2 guards stood beside it, not human, but something taller and sharper, clad in armor that seemed to drink in light. They didn't speak. The door opened silently. Daniel stepped inside. The chamber was large, but not crowded with luxury. Instead, it felt like a place built for control. Dark fabrics hung from the walls like curtains, absorbing sound. A circular window showed the stars outside, distant and cold. In the center of the room stood the vampire queen. She faced the window, her hands folded behind her back. Her dark ceremonial armor looked even more intricate in the dim light. The silver threads shimmered faintly like moonlight trapped in metal. She turned slowly as Daniel entered. Her eyes glowed a deeper red now, more visible in the shadows. You came, she said. Daniel nodded respectfully. You asked. Her gaze moved over him as if measuring his entire being. Most beings would have refused or begged for permission to delay. I didn't think delay would help, Daniel said honestly. A faint hint of amusement touched her mouth. You are direct. I try to be, he replied. Silence settled, not awkward but heavy. Then she spoke again. Do you know what my title means, human? Daniel chose his words carefully. I know it carries history, fear, power, and misunderstandings. Her expression sharpened slightly. Misunderstandings? He met her gaze steadily. People think fear is the only language you understand. For a moment her eyes narrowed and the room felt colder. You assume much, she said. I observed last night, Daniel replied. You stood alone even in a room full of leaders. That didn't look like someone who enjoys fear. The queen's face did not change, but something behind her eyes shifted again, like a door opening slightly. Your species is strange, she said softly. Small, soft, yet you step toward danger. Daniel shrugged lightly. Sometimes stepping toward something is the only way to learn what it is. She walked around him slowly, not touching, but close enough that he could feel the cool air following her movements. You did not tremble when you saw my eyes, she said. You did not pull away when you held my hand. I didn't want to insult you, Daniel said. Many insult me by existing near me, she replied. They fear I will drain them. Daniel hesitated. Is that true? The queen stopped in front of him. Her eyes held his like gravity. My kind survives on life energy, she said quietly. Not as you imagine in your old stories. We do not hunt in the dark like animals. We take what is offered or what is demanded in war. We are bound by treaties now. Daniel absorbed the words carefully. He kept his voice steady. So the fear comes from your history. It comes from what I was forced to be, she replied. Daniel's brow furrowed slightly. Forced? Her gaze turned distant for a moment, as if she looked through him toward a time long gone. My empire was born in famine, she said. We fed because we had to. Others attacked us because they feared us. We fed harder. We became what they called us. Daniel listened without interruption. He could sense how carefully she chose each sentence. Like revealing too much would weaken her. After a moment, she stepped closer. Last night, she said, I felt something I have not felt in a very long time. Daniel's throat tightened slightly. What was it? She lifted her hand and held it near his wrist, not touching yet. Hunger, she said, but also confusion. Daniel kept his arms relaxed at his sides. Her fingertips finally touched his wrist. Her touch was cool but gentle. The air changed instantly. Daniel felt a faint pressure behind his eyes, like someone turning a knob inside his mind. He did not feel pain, but he felt something trying to pull at him, searching for fear, searching for weakness. He swallowed, but he did not pull away. He thought of calm things, the sea back on Earth, his mother's voice telling him to breathe when he was young. The training drills where fear was expected, but control was demanded. The pressure increased. The Queen's eyes widened slightly. For a moment, Daniel felt his heart beat harder, but he stayed steady. Then the pressure suddenly reversed. A strange warmth spread through his wrist, flowing upward like heat rising through water. It was not burning. It felt like relief, like a heavy pack being removed from his shoulders. The Queen's hand jerked back as if she had touched something dangerous. Daniel blinked, surprised that he felt fine, even better than before. The Queen stared at him. "What did you do?" she asked, her voice lower. "I didn't do anything," Daniel replied. "You touched me." Her gaze sharpened and her voice carried a note of something rare, uncertainty. "My gift should weaken you," she said. "It should pull your strength, especially if you fear me. But you—" She stopped, as if the words didn't fit. Daniel slowly flexed his fingers, testing his body. He felt normal, his legs didn't tremble, his breathing stayed even. "I'm okay," he said carefully. The Queen's eyes glowed brighter. "No, you are more than okay. Your energy did not run from me, it pushed back, it stabilized." Daniel tried to process that. Stabilized. She turned away abruptly, pacing once like a controlled predator. "My kind feeds stronger on fear," she said. "Fear opens the mind, it makes the transfer easier. Most beings collapse under the weight of it. But you did not fear, you did not open." Daniel swallowed. "So because I stayed calm, you denied me the easy path," she finished. "And in denying it, you changed the exchange." Daniel's voice was quiet. "Is that bad?" The Queen stopped pacing. Her gaze turned toward him again, and now it looked less like a weapon and more like a question. "I do not know," she admitted. Those words, simple as they were, felt powerful. A queen admitting she did not know something was not weakness. It was honesty. Daniel took a slow breath. "Maybe it means your people don't have to rely on fear." Her expression tightened slightly. "That is not a simple change." "I know," Daniel said, "but I also know humans have survived many hard changes." The Queen's gaze softened slightly, then hardened again as if she remembered she was supposed to be feared. "You are bold," she said. "Humans are bold." Daniel nodded. "Sometimes we also make mistakes." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she said, "Dance with me again." Daniel blinked. "Now?" "Yes," she replied. He looked around, confused. "There's no music." Her hand lifted and the chamber's hidden systems activated. A low rhythm filled the air, a slow, ancient melody. It sounded like distant drums under a quiet ocean. The lights dimmed further and the stars outside became the only bright thing in the room. The Queen extended her hand. Daniel hesitated for a second, not from fear but from awareness. This was not a festival dance. This was private. This was personal. But he also knew refusing might create the wrong message. He took her hand. They began to move. The Queen's steps were smoother than before, less rigid. Her movement still carried control, but there was something else now: curiosity, testing, learning. Daniel matched her, careful and steady. While they danced, the Queen spoke in a voice softer than the day's first words. "When I was young," she said, "I believed ruling meant being feared." Daniel listened. "My advisors taught me that fear is a shield," she continued. "Fear keeps the throne safe. Fear keeps enemies away. Fear keeps hunger satisfied." Daniel's voice was quiet. "Did it make you safe?" The Queen's eyes narrowed as if the question pierced deeper than she expected. "It made me alone," she said. The words landed heavy. Daniel's chest tightened slightly. He did not know what to say at first, so he kept dancing, letting the rhythm fill the silence. Finally, he spoke carefully. "There are worse things than being feared. Being forgotten is one of them." The Queen's gaze held his. "My kind fears only extinction." Daniel nodded. "Humans understand that fear too." The Queen studied him again, and for the first time her expression looked almost tired. "You should not be here," she said quietly. Daniel frowned. "Because I'm human." "Because you are changing things you do not understand," she replied. Daniel did not deny it. "I don't want to cause harm." The Queen's jaw tightened. "Harm will come whether you want it or not." As if summoned by those words, a sharp sound cut through the station's comm network. An alarm, not loud enough to panic the whole station, but enough to make trained ears react. Daniel's comm unit buzzed. Lynn's voice came through urgently. Daniel, security breach near the restricted wing. Stay where you are, do not move. The queen stopped dancing instantly. Her eyes flared, bright as embers. Daniel felt the air shift again, heavier. The door to the chamber did not open, but the sound of distant footsteps echoed through the corridor outside. The queen turned her head slightly, listening like an animal hearing danger from far away. "One of mine," she said quietly. Daniel's stomach tightened. "Your people." "Yes," she replied, and her voice went colder. "A loyalist faction. They believe treaties are chains. They believe my restraint is weakness." Daniel's mind moved quickly. "They're here to hurt you." The queen's expression remained controlled, but her hands clenched slightly. "Or to force my hand." Daniel glanced at the door. He could hear voices outside now, sharp and tense. The queen's guards were likely outnumbered if someone had planned this. Daniel's soldier instincts returned, clear and sharp. He stepped slightly in front of the queen without thinking. She paused, watching him. "You would stand between me and them?" she asked. Daniel kept his voice calm. "I don't know what's happening out there, but I know you're trying not to start a war." Her eyes narrowed. "And you think your small body will stop my kind?" Daniel gave a short, quiet exhale. "Maybe not, but sometimes time is what matters." The door suddenly shook. A heavy impact hit it from the outside. The queen's guards raised their weapons. Daniel's heart pounded now, but he forced his breathing to stay steady. He remembered the pressure she had tried to pull from him earlier. He knew fear was fuel for her kind, so he fought it. He grounded himself in purpose. Protect. Delay. Breathe. Another impact hit the door. The queen's aura expanded. Daniel felt it like cold wind inside his bones. Her eyes glowed brighter. "If they force entry," she said, "I will end them." Daniel swallowed. He believed her. And he also believed that would trigger chaos across the station, maybe even a larger conflict. He turned slightly toward her, keeping his voice low. "Please," he said, "let me try something first." The queen stared at him, surprised by the request. "You would negotiate with a knife at your throat?" she asked. Daniel nodded once. "Humans do it all the time." The queen's lips tightened as if she was deciding whether this was courage or madness. The door shook again. A crack formed along one side. The queen's guards tensed. Daniel stepped closer to the door and raised his hands slightly, palms open, to show he carried no weapon. He looked back at the queen. "If they see you behind me, they'll focus on you. If they see a human, maybe they hesitate." The queen's gaze narrowed, but she did not stop him. The crack widened. Metal screamed softly. Then the door opened with a violent shove. Armored figures poured into the chamber. Their armor was similar to the queen's guards, but darker, with crimson markings that looked like ancient symbols. Their leader stepped forward, tall and sharp-featured, eyes glowing red like the queen's. His gaze locked on the queen. "Crimson Sovereign," he said, voice filled with controlled anger. "You dishonor your bloodline." Daniel stood between them. The leader's eyes flicked to Daniel, and his expression twisted with disgust. "A human," he spat. "You allow it into your private chamber." Daniel kept his voice calm. "This is a diplomatic station. Everyone is here under treaties." The leader laughed once, cold and short. "Treaties made by weak rulers." The queen's voice cut through like a blade. "Enough!" The leader bowed slightly, but the gesture held no respect. "You feed on nothing but air now," he said. "You let your hunger rot. You humiliate us by dancing with prey." Daniel felt the word prey sting, but he did not react. If fear was fuel, anger might be fuel too. He chose steadiness. The queen's eyes burned. "Leave." The leader's gaze remained locked on her. "We cannot. The council will not accept this. Our people will not accept this. You are changing. You are becoming soft." The queen took one step forward, and her aura expanded again. Daniel felt the temperature drop. Daniel moved with her, still blocking the direct line. He spoke quickly but calmly. "If you came here to talk, then talk. If you came here to attack, you will start a war you cannot control." The leader's eyes narrowed. "A war? Humans threaten us now." Daniel's voice stayed steady. "Humans don't want war, but we don't kneel to fear." The leader's smile faded. Something in Daniel's words seemed to irritate him more than weapons could. The leader's eyes shifted slightly, as if he was measuring Daniel. Then he took a step closer. Daniel's body tensed, but his mind stayed calm. The leader leaned in just enough to let his breath touch Daniel's face. "Your calm is arrogance," the leader whispered. "It will break." Daniel met his gaze. "Try." The leader's hand moved like lightning toward Daniel's wrist. Daniel felt the same pressure again, sharper this time, like a hook pulling at his core. For a split second, fear rose, not terror, but the instinctive fear of being drained. Daniel fought it. He remembered the sea, the breath, the calm. The pressure struggled, then faltered. The leader's eyes widened in shock. Daniel felt the warmth again, the reversal. The leader jerked back as if burned. He stared at Daniel like he had just witnessed something impossible. "What are you?" he demanded. Daniel flexed his wrist, breathing steadily. "Human." The queen's gaze sharpened. She looked from Daniel to the leader, then back again. The leader's anger shifted into something darker, not fear but recognition. "This human disrupts the hunger," he said, voice tight. "This is dangerous." The queen's voice became cold and absolute. "Leave now." The leader hesitated, and for the first time Daniel saw uncertainty in him. Not because of the queen, because of the human. The leader's gaze hardened again. "This is not over." He signaled his fighters, and they backed away slowly, not turning their backs on the queen. Then they exited the chamber as quickly as they had entered. The door closed again, sealing the room in silence. Daniel exhaled slowly, realizing how tense his muscles had become. The queen stared at him. Her guards lowered their weapons, still cautious. From Daniel's comm unit, Lynn's voice came again, tense and relieved. "Daniel, we saw the breach. Are you alive?" Daniel pressed the comm. "I'm okay," Lynn's voice sharpened. "Get out of there right now." Daniel looked at the queen. She had not moved. Her face was calm, but her eyes held something deeper now, not just curiosity, something like realization. Daniel turned off the comm for a moment, lowering his hand. The queen stepped closer. Her voice was quiet, almost dangerous in its softness. "You stood in front of me," she said. Daniel nodded. "It felt like the right thing." "You could have died," she said. Daniel swallowed. "I know." Her gaze searched his face. "Why?" Daniel answered honestly. "Because if they hurt you, it could pull the whole station into chaos, and because you didn't deserve it." The queen's eyes flickered. Then she lifted her hand again, but this time she did not touch him. She simply held it near his chest, as if sensing the steady rhythm there. "You are calm," she murmured, "even now." Daniel forced a small smile. "Not completely, but I'm trying." The queen's expression softened for a fraction of a second, then her mask returned. "You have made enemies," she said, "not only among my people." Daniel nodded slowly. "I expected that." The queen turned toward the window again, staring into the stars. "They will not stop," she said quietly. "They will try again. They will claim I am unfit to rule. They will claim humans are poisoning me." Daniel stood beside her, careful not to step too close. "What do you want to do?" he asked. The queen's eyes glowed faintly as she looked out at the darkness. "I have ruled by fear for so long," she said. "Fear kept my throne, fear kept my people alive." She paused. "But fear also chained us." Daniel listened, feeling the weight of her words. The queen's voice lowered. "When I touched you, I felt warmth, not hunger, not emptiness. Warmth." Daniel's chest tightened slightly. He did not know how to respond, so he stayed quiet. The queen turned her head toward him. "I want to understand what you are," she said, "and what your kind is." Daniel nodded once. "Then we can talk, we can learn without fear." The queen's eyes held his. "Without fear," she repeated slowly, like tasting a new language. Daniel's comm unit buzzed again, urgent now. Lynn's voice cut through. "Daniel, the council is assembling. They want answers, and the station security chief wants to question you immediately." Daniel looked toward the door, then back to the queen. He knew stepping out now meant facing suspicion, pressure, and diplomatic chaos, but staying might be seen as something worse. The queen spoke first. "Go," she said. Daniel blinked. "You're letting me leave?" Her lips tightened slightly. "You are not my prisoner." There was a pause, then she added, quieter, "Not yet." Daniel's eyes widened slightly, unsure if it was humor or warning. The queen stepped closer and lowered her voice. "Tonight," she said, "there is another gathering, a smaller one. My council will attend." "Your leaders will attend." Daniel nodded. "I'll be there." The queen's gaze sharpened. "Do not bring fear with you." Daniel met her eyes. "I won't." He turned and walked toward the door. As he left, he felt the weight of the galaxy pressing in from all directions. Humans were new, small, and often underestimated. But today, a human had stood between a vampire queen and her own assassins. Not with strength, not with violence, with calm, and the universe had noticed. Far down the corridor, as station security rushed toward him, Daniel understood one thing clearly. The dance had not been a harmless moment. It had been the first step into a storm. And part two ended with him walking straight into it, knowing he could not turn back now. Daniel walked through the corridor with station security surrounding him, but he did not feel like a prisoner. He felt like someone standing at the center of a storm that had only just begun. Diplomats, guards, and officials moved quickly past him, their voices filled with tension. News of the incident had already spread across the station. Every species present knew that a faction from the Vampire Queen's own people had attempted to confront her. Inside the council chamber, representatives from dozens of civilizations gathered around a circular table. Holographic symbols floated in the air above each seat, marking alliances and treaties. The room felt heavy, as if the station itself held its breath. Ambassador Lin stood near Daniel as he entered. She gave him a quick look that mixed relief and frustration. "You are alive," she said quietly. "Yes," Daniel replied. "You also just became the most discussed human in the sector," she added. Daniel gave a small smile but said nothing. Across the chamber, the doors opened again and the Vampire Queen entered with her guards. The temperature of the room seemed to drop instantly. Conversations stopped. Some ambassadors looked away, unable to meet her gaze. Daniel watched her closely. Her posture was controlled as always, but something had changed. The cold distance she carried before now seemed layered with something deeper, awareness, perhaps even determination. The council began with formal accusations. Several representatives demanded explanations for the security breach. Others argued that the Queen's presence had brought danger to a neutral station. The Queen listened silently. Finally, she spoke. "My people's internal conflict does not threaten the treaties," she said calmly. "Those who entered without permission acted against my command." Her voice filled the chamber without effort. A tall reptilian ambassador leaned forward. "Yet the presence of a human appears connected to this instability. Reports suggest he interfered with your nature." Daniel felt dozens of eyes turn toward him. The Queen's gaze sharpened slightly. "The human did nothing except exist." A murmur moved through the room. Ambassador Lin stepped forward. "Humanity is committed to peaceful exchange. Daniel Hale acted only in defense and diplomacy." The debate continued, growing louder. Some species feared the possibility that humans could influence the energy-feeding abilities of the Queen's people. Others saw opportunity, a chance to reshape relations. Daniel listened carefully, saying little. He understood that words carried weight here. Speaking too soon could worsen tensions. After hours of discussion, the council agreed to observe the situation closely rather than impose sanctions. It was a fragile decision, but it kept peace for now. As the chamber emptied, Daniel felt a presence behind him. The Queen stood only a few steps away. "You remained calm," she said quietly. Daniel nodded. "I tried." Her eyes held his for a moment. "Walk with me." They moved through a quieter corridor overlooking the stars. The station lights reflected in the glass like scattered jewels. "My people are divided," she said after a moment. "Those who attacked believe I have abandoned strength." Daniel crossed his arms lightly. "Because you're changing." "Yes," she said simply, "and change creates fear." He nodded slowly. "Humans know that feeling well." She glanced at him. "You speak as if your kind has faced similar struggles." "We're always changing," Daniel replied, "sometimes faster than we understand." The Queen stopped walking and turned toward him fully. "When I touched your energy," she said, "I felt balance. My hunger quieted instead of growing stronger. That is not natural for my kind." Daniel considered that carefully. Maybe it's not unnatural, maybe it's just new. Her eyes flickered with interest. At that moment, a message arrived through her personal communicator. She listened silently, then closed her eyes briefly. "They have gathered again," she said. "The Loyalist faction, they demand a formal challenge to my rule." Daniel frowned. "A challenge? My people believe power must be proven," she said. "If I refuse, they will claim weakness. If I accept, conflict becomes inevitable." Daniel thought quickly. "Is there another way?" She looked at him thoughtfully. "Perhaps, but it would require a demonstration that my change strengthens us rather than weakens us." Daniel understood what she meant before she finished speaking. "You want to show them what happened between us?" "Yes," she said. Later that evening, the grand hall filled again, not with celebration, but with anticipation. Members of the Queen's species stood on one side, their armor dark and sharp. Diplomats and observers filled the other side. Daniel stood beside the Queen at the center. The leader who had confronted them earlier stepped forward. "You dishonor tradition," he said loudly. "You claim to grow stronger without fear. Prove it." The Queen raised her chin slightly. "I will." She turned toward Daniel. "Are you willing?" she asked softly. Daniel knew the risk. He nodded. The hall fell silent as she reached out and took his wrist again. The air grew heavy. Daniel felt the familiar pressure, but he stayed calm. He focused on breathing, on steadiness, on trust. The queen closed her eyes. Instead of draining him, a soft glow spread around them. The energy exchange remained balanced, gentle, controlled. Gasps spread through the crowd. Daniel remained standing unharmed. The queen opened her eyes slowly. "You see," she said to her people, "strength does not require fear. We can feed without destroying." The loyalist leader stepped forward, disbelief in his eyes. "This is a trick," he said. "It is evolution," she replied. He lunged suddenly, attempting to strike. Daniel reacted without thinking, stepping between them again. Guards rushed forward, weapons raised, but the queen lifted her hand, stopping them. "Enough," she said. Her voice carried authority that silenced the entire hall. "My rule stands," she continued. "Those who cannot accept change may leave, but they will not threaten peace." The loyalist leader hesitated. Around him, several of his followers lowered their heads. The demonstration had shaken them. One by one, they stepped back. The challenge ended without bloodshed. In the days that followed, news of the event spread across the galaxy. Scientists arrived to study the phenomenon. Cultural exchanges between humans and the Queen's people began quietly. Daniel found himself constantly busy, attending meetings, answering questions, and helping translate between worlds that had once feared each other. One evening, he returned to the observation deck where he had first seen her alone. The Queen stood there again, watching the stars. "You changed everything," she said without turning. Daniel shook his head. "We changed things together." She turned slowly, her expression softer than he had ever seen. "For centuries," she said, "I believed loneliness was the price of power, but you stepped into my world without fear." Daniel smiled slightly. "You accepted the invitation." Her eyes glowed faintly. "Yes," she said. "And I wish to accept another." Soft music began playing through the deck's hidden speakers. She extended her hand. Daniel laughed quietly. "Another dance?" "Yes," she said. He took her hand. They moved slowly beneath the artificial starlight, two beings from different worlds sharing a moment that no one could have predicted. Around them, the station continued its endless motion, carrying the promise of a new future. The Queen no longer stood alone. And the human who had invited her to dance without knowing who she was had become the bridge between fear and trust. As the music ended, she looked at him with quiet warmth. "The galaxy will remember this," she said. Daniel nodded. "I hope it remembers the right reasons." She smiled faintly. Outside the glass, stars burned bright and endless, and for the first time in a long while, the future did not feel cold or empty. It felt full of possibility.